Hi everyone, Magnus here, back again with some more live explained rapid chess. Now, if you've been watching this series for a while, you may have noticed that the goal of this series is both to try and give you my thoughts and ideas, so you can try and understand what I'm thinking during the game, but it also was trying to get over 2400 rapid. Now, if you can see down here, I have actually gotten back over to 2400 now in the rapid pool, and that means that I can, well, I don't know. I'm basically wondering whether or not you guys would be interested in a new series, kind of the same stuff. I am just going to be doing the same kind of like content where I tell you what I'm thinking, but also I will now be going for 2500. So if you guys would be interested in that, please do let me know. But as of this game, 1900 from Greece, we have started with e4, e5, and bishop c4, bishop's opening, and after knight f6, which was attacking my e-pawn, I simply played d3 to defend it, and now they're playing a natural developing move, potentially targeting my f2 pawn. I'm going to continue with knight to c3, idea being that I don't want to develop this knight to f3 just yet because I want to reserve this f4 pawn push and try to attack in the center, going for this e5 pawn, which is what I'm going to do. Now if they take me, my bishop gets developed, and I also get two center pawns, and they will only have one center pawn. So if you can try and trade off your flank pawn for the center pawn, that's generally a good idea. If you guys are not familiar with like the hierarchy of pawns, pawns on the flank are worth less than these pawns, which are worth less than the c pawn, which are worth less than the center pawns, which are your most valuable pawns, because they control the center of the board. And if you can control the center of the board, then you can control the pace of the game, be that your opponent attacking you or you going after your opponent. So they do trade, developing my bishop out. I've now got these two nice bishops here. And they do play a6. Potentially they were concerned about knight to a5, which could have attacked their bishop, and now it has a nice retreating square. I think it makes sense here just to keep developing. I've now got my two knights out, my two bishops out, and they're looking very nice. So potentially queen d2 long castles is on the cards. Queen e2, bishop e3, also an idea. I might continue with a3 myself, just so that my bishop cannot be captured like this. And I think that could make sense. Also, the move pawn d4 does come to mind, because pawn d4 would kick their bishop back and allow me to castle very nicely. So I think I actually will go for pawn d4, expanding in the center. It is a little bit risky because potentially these pawns can come under fire, but my bishop can always come back to protect them, or equally I could play a move like queen e2. So I actually think queen e2 is probably the natural move. Guarding this pawn here, they have now pinned my knight. Or equally, I could just castle, because if they ever try and capture this pawn, I will have my rook coming to the e-file. So I think this is probably the easiest way to get a tactical defense on this pawn. So if they capture my knight, I will recapture, and if they capture this pawn, I play rook e1. If they play d5, then I could consider taking and something like knight g5 to try and win back the knight. But they don't go for any of those complications. Instead, we just get this position. I'm thinking maybe I should just go for a pin on their knight now, which makes a lot of sense here, trying to exploit this guy here. Now, if I can put my knight in the center, they will come under huge pressure, and also I've got the open rook lane already to add more pressure here. Okay, so now I'm looking at captures, knight d5, hitting the pawn, and if that would force the queen all the way back to d8, that would look pretty strong. And then I've even got moves like c3, bishop a5, b4, bishop to b6, and I can take that, which would ruin their structure in the center. So just quick calculation there. Knight d5 should be very strong. Hitting the bishop. Okay, they might have missed this move, maybe. I don't know. I mean, that's why they played h6, I'd imagine, is to provoke me to take. Maybe they thought I was going to play after h6 that I would go bishop h4. I'm not really sure. Let's put this knight in the center. Knight guards the pawn, queen guards the pawn. Queen is hit, so you got to move back, and you got to go back to d8. Otherwise, I will take this guy. Okay. Yeah, this looks good. So c3 now seems to be a pretty good looking move. I do like it. Building my pawn chain up in the center. I now have got the big center. Open rook file. Their bishop's out of the game. I don't even really know if I would want to capture this guy necessarily. I could play a move like queen e1, queen g3. I do like the look of that a lot. So I think I might go for it. Let's get the queen in. Their bishop's really locked out of the game, and I'm actually, even though it would really hurt their pawn structure like this, I think that it's more valuable to me at the moment that the bishop just can't access the position at all. And in the meantime, while their pieces are all over on the queen side, I can start sliding my queen into the action, and like my knight can now come into the game, and it should be very dangerous for my opponent. Yeah, like both the knights can jump into the position. If I can get two horses pressuring on g7, that could be really dangerous. Also, knight f4, knight g6 is a move because of the pin. Okay, I'm going to play the move that I wanted to play earlier, queen g3. They don't have knight a5, which is quite important here. That would hit my bishop and be a very annoying move. But now also, if they do play bishop to b6, I can capture, and that would defend my own bishop here. So then I would actually have had a fork. Wait, if I played b4, they would have had to take this guy in between anyway. Because if they didn't and they would have played bishop to b6, I would have captured here, and then I would have delivered a fork. But none of that happened. Instead, they just decided to take here. Do I take with the pawn? That would kick the knight, but that's no good, really. Let's take with the bishop. Look at this immense pressure. I've got the light squared bishop. They've got the dark squared bishop. Now, a useful thing to know when you've got the two bishops of opposite color is that the bishop of opposite color will favor the side that is attacking and putting the most pressure on, because as you can see, their dark squared bishop cannot fight back against my light squared bishop, and their pawns are not strategically placed. Like my pawns are very nice and fighting back against their dark squared bishop. Okay, looks like it's time for me to bring my knight into f5, where it will just pretty much destroy the entire position. So they are trying to fight back against my bishop here. What to do? I could play knight f5 anyway. Knight captures, rook captures, and then I can quickly try and bring my other rook into the game. That looks very strong. Equally, I could just move the bishop back and then try to play like rook f4. Let's just calculate, try and be concrete in these positions. If I play knight f5, takes. I have got an x-ray on the bishop as well. So that's something to note. I could capture and take the bishop. So knight f5, we get an exchange. Let's say queen e7, I play rook f1. And actually the pressure on this pawn is just looks pretty much indefensible. You can't even get back to the pawn, and I'm going to crash through. So I think knight f5 is definitely good enough to win the game. Should get the job done with this knight here. Open f-file. Dominant bishop in the center of the board. As Hikaru would say, the wooden shield here. Look at that bishop. Wow, beautifully drawn arrows here. Bishop attacking f2, attacking b8. No, I was trying to draw the wooden shield, as Hikaru would say. Look at that bishop in the center. His bishop sidelined, or her bishop, I don't really know. On a5, and just simply cannot get into the game. Okay. So bishop to b3 would attack their bishop on a5. Bishop c7, a likely response. Actually then preparing d5. So we've got to be a little bit careful here. Definitely have to be a little bit careful. Okay, so I mean I can take and then oh no, I can't take and then take because the queen's defense. Actually, this was a great move by them. Huh. Okay. I guess my bishop can always go back. I can respond with e5, and my bishop can always drop back to c2. But this isn't what I was looking for. So I'm gonna have to play e5 on d5. Actually, I could play queen f3 and then just line up loads of pressure on this on both pawns. Actually, queen f3 looks extremely strong. Pressuring this way, pressuring this way. Actually, I think black's just collapsing here. Although queen d6, I guess I'll just go g3. Yeah, queen d6, I'll just play g3, protect against their setup. And the center's collapsing. This side is under a lot of pressure. G3 looks like the move here. Just hitting the queen. Let's play it. And then I should be able to take here and get my bishop back into the attack pretty quick. I've got the whole gang's on the f-file. Aliekin's gun. I believe that's what these three pieces stacked up on a single file are called. So this definitely looks pretty close to game over. Also, funny enough, after queen h3, the queen's almost trapped. Not quite, but if somehow I could get this diagonal defended and then play rook h5, the queen would be stuck. Okay. Another question, do I want to take rook f7 first? Okay, I mean, like queen e4 takes, rook f7, takes. Point being that there is a discovery on the king, you're hitting the bishop. If the bishop moves, there's like rook takes b7 check and loads of other stuff. Also, wherever the bishop moves, I can try and win it. So yeah, we're just gonna have to wait and see what my opponent comes up with. Imagine queen e4 was their initial idea. Wow, so they go for this. Okay. Do I have rook takes f7? They take my queen. I take your bishop, then I take your queen. I think that's game over, right? Let's go for it. Got to be confident in your moves. Let's take the bishop with check, and then take the queen. Now, winning material, like a full piece, is pretty much just as good as it's as good as checkmate. And the reason it's as good as checkmate, well, it's not quite as good, but it's pretty much as good because once you're up a piece, you know that you're going to win the game anyway, and it doesn't really matter too much. So I'm looking at probably king f2, rook takes, and then king g3. The this pawn will drop, and my two rooks will just win. So king f2 makes sense. Also blocking their f pawn. If I have to, I can also bring the rook in like this if they don't want to give me away. Bringing their other rook to f1 probably makes sense as well. Let's see. Okay, so just go for this. My rook king comes in, hits the rook. I'm going to win this pawn here. And after rook h5, their rook's kind of stuck. So I'm getting my pawn. They deliver a check, king f2. I hide behind my rook. And now my other rook can come into the 7th rank and start to do some pretty serious damage. I might as well start taking a couple of these pawns here. Yeah, why not? Okay. They play this move, doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I think I might just stack and trade off one set of rooks. That would probably make my life a little bit easier. Just set up the trade. There's always like bishop c2 as well, trying to checkmate them. If I can remove that square. Okay. Let's try and force the king up the board. Now I'm going to go back and look to take these weak pawns. Probably rook e6. And maybe I'll go... No, rook f5, not that good. Okay. Bishop a4 wins another pawn. So that's probably sufficient. Let's go take this pawn. Oh wait, I just noticed I've got a minute left. Kind of getting a little bit too relaxed, maybe. Okay, let's take this guy. Actually, let's play rook g3 first. Keep things simple. Don't let them get any infiltration down the g file. It's the only play that they have. If you give me a check, I'll just go back to g2. No big deal. Head back. Now the rook's staring down. Also, there's like rook takes bishop c2 is a threat. Okay, let's take this guy. Let's go king h3, getting out of the check. This pawn is technically dropping. I probably should have played king g1 actually to maintain contact with the pawn, but it doesn't matter. My d pawn is marching down the board. Let's put the rook behind the pawn and push him, baby. Okay, they can give me some checks, doesn't do anything. My king will just go back. And this d pawn will win the game. You can sack the bishop because if the rook takes it, you get a queen. So the bishop doesn't matter. Push. And you can't stop the pawn. Let's go h1 looks pretty safe. There'll be no more checks from the rook. And then I will just push up the board. Let's convert, take the rook. And the simplest way to try and win one of these positions is just to try and take the pawn, move the bishop back, and let's just try and trade off the bishop here. So now you can see I've got the king nice and boxed in. Let's put my rook on f3. Now their king's in a cage, and I can just push my pawn up the board, making a queen. And then you can set up the classic ladder checkmate for the win. All right, good game to my opponent. Let's take a quick look at the analysis. I imagine I might have made some small mistakes there. Maybe I had an easier win earlier on, but it wasn't a terrible game. 88 accuracy for me, 80 accuracy for them. The game graph was smooth, so there were no big blunders, which is good. As in we always kept the winning advantage. A d4, a nice move, taking the full center, castling out of trouble. And I was pointing out in the cast after castles that if you try and take this pawn on, sorry, if you take the knight first, like bishop takes, and then try and take the pawn in the center, then there's probably, okay, apparently the engine is saying bishop takes f7 wins, but I was thinking rook e1 might already be enough. And after like d5, I thought you might be able to sack the bishop here, something like this. But apparently this isn't that good. What the engine is giving, but like generally you can just know that taking these pawns is not going to be a good thing. But the engine's giving bishop takes f7, takes, and knight to g5. Oh, that's such a nice move. After knight takes g5, bishop takes g5, attacks the queen and the king. That's a really nice line. But yeah, I didn't really think too hard before castling. I just felt like it can't be the right move to go in for this pawn while the king's still in the center. So they decided to castle, bishop g5 going for the pin. And apparently bishop h4 is the best move, trying to induce this pawn push here. Because after like bishop to h4, g5. Oh, you just sack. That makes a lot of sense actually. And then that you can't stop this threat. So I should have probably gone bishop h4. And it gives bishop to g4, knight d5, I imagine. No. Queen to c1. Unpinning the knight, I guess. I don't really know. Queen c1's a weird move. What's wrong with knight d5? g5? Yeah, okay. So I guess the idea of queen c1 is that on g5 you can still sack. That actually makes a lot of sense. So that's a nice idea. This position was still really nice. Queen comes to g3. Apparently pawn b4 wins the game. Oh, because if they take, then I could have taken with the pawn. Yeah, that's pretty bad actually. Because now if the bishop to b6 takes, there's d5. Yeah, I should have seen that. I mean, like I saw the d5 idea after, but wasn't quite there at the time. I just thought this looked really nice. Knight comes to h4. And knight f5 is apparently the best move. Bishop to b3 is still good. But how do I keep the big advantage? This is still correct. But apparently e5 is the top move. e5, and I guess bishop c2 is coming. Rook f6. Queen d3. Yeah, just bishop c2, queen d3 looks really good actually. Queen e7, rook f6, king h8. And what? Bishop c2, you sacrifice the rook? Oh my goodness. And is it queen d3? No, queen d3, f5 draw. What is this? It's just queen h4. Wow. Just the king is completely shut in. That's crazy. You just leave the rook to die on f6, and there's no way to defend against this bishop and queen. That's really nice. That's a good demonstration of the attacking side wanting the opposite color bishop. But instead, we get this winning endgame. Rook takes, and then take the queen. Winning endgames are also a nice thing to have. And there's not much to say. This was converted pretty normally. Just pushed the pawn down the board, made a queen. Set up the blockade. And the reason you do this is if you're low on time, the technique you want to have in these positions is to just set up your blockade for the endgame, and then you can just push the pawn and set up the ladder mate, and you can do that really quickly. As you can see, this only took me 2 seconds to execute. So if you guys did enjoy this video, find it interesting or useful, do please consider liking and subscribing, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!